Ladies, have you ever poured your heart, your time, your love into a man only to realize later he was loyal to something else entirely? You cooked, you cared, you sacrificed, you stood by him in silence when no one else did. And yet, when the moment of truth came, it wasn't you he stayed faithful to, it was his comfort, his ego, or his convenience. You ever wonder why men can accept everything you give and still walk away like none of it mattered? Today I'm going to tell you the truth that will set you free. Men don't care what you do for them. They are loyal to only one thing. And once you understand this, you will never waste another drop of your love on the wrong man again. This is for the women who have lived deeply, who've been hurt silently, who've given their all and wondered why it was never enough. This is for you, the woman reclaiming her worth, the woman ready to heal, the woman who knows her love is powerful, but refuses to keep pouring it into broken cups. Imagine this. You've given your best years to a man. You've held his secrets, carried his burdens, softened his anger, and silenced your own needs just to keep peace. You believed that love, your love, was the glue that would hold everything together. And yet, one day, he walks away. Or maybe he doesn't leave physically, but emotionally, you sense it. His eyes don't shine at you the same. His conversations shrink into silence, and his loyalty feels like sand slipping through your hands. You ask yourself, how could he leave after everything I've done? How could all those nights, all those sacrifices, all those pieces of me not be enough? But here's the secret. Most women never get told. It was never about what you did. It was always about what he valued. A man does not stay because of the meals you cooked, the nights you stayed up waiting for him, or the way you bent over backwards to soothe his chaos. Those things might comfort him, but comfort is not loyalty. Loyalty is tethered to values, deep internal codes that guide every decision. A man loyal to growth will not abandon the woman who grows with him. A man loyal to respect will guard the woman he respects. But a man loyal to his ego, he will bow only to whatever feeds that ego in the moment. And when it isn't you anymore, he will think about it. How many times have you witnessed women, perhaps even yourself, outgiving, outloving, out-sacrificing, and still being discarded like yesterday's memory? It isn't because they weren't enough. It's because they were investing in the wrong currency. Loyalty doesn't belong to actions. It belongs to alignment. If a man's values are rooted in integrity, then your presence will mirror his integrity. If his values are shallow, then your sacrifices become invisible. The dangerous illusion is believing you can teach him values by pouring more love into the void. You can't. Love does not rewrite a man's code. It can illuminate. It can invite. But it cannot transform a man who is married to mediocrity, selfishness, or narcissistic dynamics. You can stand at the edge of a cliff and call it a bridge, but that won't make it safe to walk across. The same way, you can stand by a man and call it loyalty, but if his values are not aligned with fidelity, with respect, with growth, your loyalty will never be mirrored. This is why so many women get trapped in trauma cycles, because they believe, if I just give a little more, maybe he'll see me, maybe he'll stay, and for a fleeting moment, he does. He smiles, he softens, he takes what you give, and in that instant, you feel hope. But that hope is fragile, because it's not rooted in his core values. It's rooted in your efforts, and efforts alone cannot sustain love. Here's the hardest truth. A man's loyalty is revealed, not by how much you give, but by what he values when no one is watching. Is he loyal to peace? He will protect it. Is he loyal to respect? He will not disrespect you. Is he loyal to growth? He will grow with you. And if he's loyal only to his ego, then every sacrifice you make becomes another tool for him to manipulate, another way to keep you orbiting his world, while he gives you crumbs of affection to keep you tethered. Now pause for a moment and reflect. The last man you loved, what was he loyal to? Did his loyalty match the life you wanted, or did you spend years trying to convince yourself that love would eventually reshape his values. That belief is the silent heartbreak so many women carry. The belief that loyalty can be earned by effort rather than observed through character. And yet, here is the paradox that leaves you restless. If loyalty is tied to values, then what happens when you've already given everything and you realize his values never matched yours? That's the knife edge many women live on, torn between the hope that he will change and the reality that his values are already written. You can't yet let go because your heart is still whispering, but what if? And it's in that whisper that your power begins to dissolve, setting the stage for the next truth. You ever notice how you could be everything to a man? His confidant, his supporter, his lover, his safe space, and still he finds a way to betray you. Still he drifts towards something or someone else. Still he seeks attention outside. Still he leaves you wondering what you did wrong. That's when the ache becomes unbearable, because deep down you thought your effort had to count for something. You believed that love could conquer all, but love cannot override character, and that's the silent law no one warns you about. A man's character is the soil. Your love, your nurturing, your sacrifices, they are the seeds. But if the soil is rotten, the seeds will never bloom. And yet so many women spend their lives planting in barren ground, hoping that if they just water harder, the soil will magically transform. It doesn't. Character is the foundation upon which loyalty either stands tall or crumbles. This is why men with weak character can drain you endlessly. They'll take your cooking, your body, your emotional labor, your patience. They'll let you mother them, heal them, protect them, fight their battles, and for a while, you'll feel needed, even irreplaceable. But when the moment of testing comes, when integrity is required, when temptation arrives, when pressure demands loyalty, they fold, and you are left standing in shock, whispering, "But after everything I did for you, it wasn't you, it was never you, it was his character." Character dictates whether a man respects you when you're not in the room. It dictates whether he tells the truth when lying would be easier. It dictates whether he chooses you when no one is watching. And no amount of your effort can rewrite a man's character if he has no desire to rewrite it himself. Think of the women you know, or maybe yourself, who loved men trapped in narcissistic dynamics. The woman gave endlessly, love, forgiveness, second chances, even her own dream, and yet the man continued to betray, manipulate, or disappear. Why? Because his character was loyal to self-preservation, not to partnership. Her effort couldn't shift his foundation. It only fed his cycle. Here's the part that burns. Women in their feminine energy often believe that love is enough to soften a man's hardness, that nurturing can transform him, that if she stands by him long enough, he will eventually see her worth. And while love is powerful, it is not alchemy. It cannot turn stone into gold. This is where emotional healing begins. Recognizing that your worth is not measured by how much you give to a man who cannot receive. Recognizing that trauma bonds make you confuse endurance with love. Recognizing that when you choose to keep pouring into a man without character, you are abandoning yourself in the name of a loyalty he will never return. But what do you do with this truth once it sinks in? What do you do when your heart still aches for a man who has shown you who he is, but your soul knows he will never change? That's where the tension lingers, because now you're caught between the woman you've always been, the giver, the healer, the forgiver, and the woman you're becoming, the high-value woman who knows her love deserves to be met with equal integrity. And it's in that fragile in-between that the real battle begins. Picture this. You're standing in a crowded room with the man you love. Music is playing, conversations swirl around you, and on the outside you look like the perfect couple. But then you notice something subtle. His hand doesn't reach for yours. His eyes wander elsewhere. His body is present, but his attention isn't. You tell yourself, it's nothing. He's just distracted. But deep down a quiet ache forms, because you know when a man is truly protecting what he values, he doesn't drift, not even in small ways. He shields it like treasure, not out of obligation, but instinct. And when that protection is missing, you begin to feel unsafe, not just physically, but emotionally. spiritually, at the deepest levels of your feminine energy. Here's what no one tells you. A man will always guard what he sees as precious. Think about it. He locks his phone. He guards his career. He protects his car with more vigilance than some women receive in relationships. Why? Because those are the things he believes are irreplaceable. And so the question becomes, when a man has you, does he treat you like a treasure that could never be replaced? Or does he treat you like a comfort he assumes will always be there? That difference, subtle yet devastating, determines the health of your emotional bond. When a woman realizes she is not being protected, the wound cuts deeper than betrayal. It feels like abandonment of the soul, because feminine energy blooms when she feels safe, when she knows her vulnerability won't be exploited. And yet how many women have sat across from a man, giving him their trust, only to realize later that he never shielded them from harm. Instead, he left them exposed, sometimes to the cruelty of others, sometimes to his own selfishness, sometimes to silence that screamed louder than words. The psychological trigger here is survival. A woman's nervous system is wired to bond when she feels safe, but when that safety is missing, she begins to perform for love instead of receiving it. She overcompensates, cooking more, giving more, forgiving more, hoping that her effort will finally make him see her as worth protecting. But it doesn't work, because protection doesn't come from her effort, it comes from his perception of value. Have you ever wondered why some men treat certain women like royalty and others like an afterthought? It's not about looks, not about who gave more, not even about time invested. It's about value perception. A man will risk fight and protect what he cannot imagine losing. And if you feel unprotected, it's not because you aren't valuable, it's because he doesn't see your value. That's the hardest truth to swallow. And this is where trauma recovery begins, because too often women blame themselves. If I had been prettier, maybe he'd hold me tighter. If I had been calmer, maybe he'd fight for me. No, his inability to protect you is not your lack, it's his blindness. But the deeper wound is that you believed his blindness meant you were invisible. That's the cycle that steals your power. So ask yourself now, in the silence of your own heart, in your last relationship, did you feel shielded? Did you feel like he would fight for your emotional safety the way he fought for his ambition? Or were you left carrying both his weight and your own, unprotected in moments when you needed him most? If that memory makes your chest tighten, that's not weakness, it's awareness. And awareness is the first doorway to becoming a high-value woman who will no longer tolerate being unguarded. But then comes the next layer of pain, the realization that some men don't leave because they love you, but because you are comfortable. And that truth is harder to untangle than betrayal itself. Imagine lying in bed next to a man you've been with for years. His body is there, but you feel the distance. You wonder, if he didn't love me, why hasn't he left? Why does he stay, eat my food, sleep in my bed, call me his woman, if he doesn't truly see me? And the answer is chilling. Sometimes men don't stay because they love you. They stay because it's comfortable. Comfort is seductive. It doesn't demand growth. It doesn't require sacrifice. It doesn't ask for loyalty. Comfort is predictable. It's easy. It's the soft couch he falls into when he's too tired to face the world. And for many women, that comfort masquerades as commitment. You think he's here, so he must love me. But being present is not the same as being devoted. A man can sit beside you every night and still dream of a life without you. He can hold your hand and still withhold his heart. This is where so many women get trapped, confusing comfort with commitment. Because when you've been hurt before, the fact that he doesn't leave feels like it feels safer to cling to his presence than to face the loneliness of his absence. But let me ask you, does a man's body beside you heal the loneliness if his soul is elsewhere? Or does it deepen the ache, making you question why you feel so alone when you're not actually alone? The psychology behind this is brutal but clear. Many men stay not out of devotion, but out of convenience. They know you'll cook, you'll clean, you'll love, you'll forgive. You become a predictable cycle of comfort, and yet deep down you feel it.
You are not chosen. You are simply you. That's why the relationship feels heavy, why your laughter feels forced, why your spirit feels smaller, because your feminine energy cannot bloom in a space where you are tolerated instead of cherished. Here's where the emotional trap tightens. Women in this situation often become high performers in love. You try harder, you give more, you dress up, you cook his favorite meals, you plan surprises, you become everything except what you actually feel. And all the while, your nervous system is screaming, this isn't love, this is survival. But you silence it, because survival feels safer than starting over. Yet starting over is sometimes the only path to true relationship healing, because the longer you stay in comfort, disguised as commitment, the more you teach yourself that half love is the best you deserve, and every day you stay, your light dims a little more. That's why so many high-value women only rise after leaving, because leaving is the ultimate act of reclaiming power. But here's the haunting question. If a man is with you, out of habit, not devotion, how do you tell the difference between a man who stays because he loves and a man who stays because it's easy? Look at how he responds when growth is required. If you ask him to step up, does he rise or does he resist? If challenges come, does he fight with you or retreat into silence? Love commits to growth, comfort commits to staying the same. So now, reflect, are you loved or are you convenient? And if that question unsettles you, it's because deep down you already know the answer, but knowing it is not the same as acting on it. And that is the razor's edge, where so many women live, the space between awareness and action, between comfort and courage, between what is easy and what is true. And maybe, just maybe, it is in that razor's edge that your transformation begins. He tells you he loves you. He promises you forever. He swears you are his only one. And for a moment, your heart softens, because words are warm. They soothe. They make you believe that maybe this time it's real. But then days pass, and his actions unravel his declarations. He says he'll call, but the phone stays silent. He says he'll change, but the same patterns repeat. He says you're his priority, but everything else comes first. And suddenly, you find yourself lying awake at night, whispering to your own heart, why do I feel so unseen when he says he loves me? Why do his words sound full, yet leave me empty? This is where so many women fall into the trap of believing words over patterns, because words are intoxicating. They stir our longing for emotional bonding. They touch our feminine energy that craves to be cherished. They stroke our need for safety. But here's the brutal truth. Words cost nothing. A man can say he loves you without ever having to prove it. But consistency, that is expensive. That requires character, discipline, and alignment with value. Consistency reveals whether his love is rooted in truth, or whether it is just a performance. Think about the last time someone let you down. Did it hurt because they didn't warn you? Or did it hurt because they promised you something and then broke it? The deepest heartbreak often isn't betrayal, it's inconsistency, because inconsistency creates emotional instability. It's a psychological trigger that keeps you addicted to hope. One day he's attentive, the next day he's distant. One week he's talking about marriage, the next week he disappears into silence. This cycle pulls you into a trauma bond, where you cling to the highs while trying to survive the lows, convincing yourself the man he was on his best day is the real him, and the rest is just a phase. But the truth is inverted. The best day version of him is the mask, the consistent version, whether it's neglect, avoidance, or selfishness. That's his truth. And once you accept this, everything shifts, because suddenly you stop believing his words and start observing his patterns. You stop asking, what did he say? And start asking, what does he repeatedly do? Consistency is not just about actions, it's about emotional safety. When a man is consistent, your nervous system relaxes, you can breathe, You don't feel the constant anxiety of guessing whether today he'll love you or hurt you. That's why consistency is the true language of love. Without it, words are just empty echoes. And yet, here is where the story deepens, because many women stay in inconsistent relationships, not because they don't see the truth, but because inconsistency itself becomes addictive. The highs feel euphoric because the lows are devastating. The scarcity of affection makes every small gesture feel monumental. It's the same psychology that keeps gamblers pulling slot machine levers, hoping the next round will pay off. And this is the exact dynamic that keeps women stuck in relationships with men who will never truly commit. The intermittent reinforcement of words without matching action. So I ask you now, what do his patterns tell you? Do they match his promises? Does his daily treatment of you align with his declarations of love? Or are you living in the gap between what he says and what he actually gives? If that question tightens your chest, it's because deep down, you already know the answer, and it is in that knowing, raw and painful, that your power begins to awaken. But then comes the darker side of this truth. Some men are not inconsistent by accident. Some men are loyal only to their ego, and they deliberately use inconsistency as a weapon to keep you unsteady, so you'll keep chasing the version of him that never really existed in the first place. There's a certain kind of man who never truly sees you. He sees what you give him, what you mirror back to his pride, what you add to his life. But you, the woman with dreams, emotions, pain and needs, because his loyalty is not to you, not to love, not to growth. His loyalty is to his ego. And when a man's ego is his god, you will always feel like you are bowing at an altar that was never meant to be yours. Think about how he behaves when his pride is threatened. One wrong word, one perceived slight, one moment where you don't worship him, and suddenly he withholds affection, grows cold or lashes out. This is not love, it's control. It's a narcissistic dynamic designed to keep you feeding his ego, so he doesn't collapse under his own emptiness. And yet many women mistake this volatility for passion. They confuse his jealousy with love, his demands with devotion, his emotional punishments with proof that he cares too much. But all of these are psychological triggers meant to keep you bound. When a man is loyal only to his ego, everything you do becomes fuel for him. Your forgiveness reassures him he can hurt you again. Your sacrifices reinforce his belief that your needs are secondary. Your tears confirm his power over your heart. And worst of all, your silence teaches him that your boundaries are negotiable. This dynamic doesn't create emotional bonding. It creates emotional captivity. But why do women stay in this prison? Because ego-driven men are master manipulators. They give just enough to keep you hooked, just enough affection to confuse your pain, just enough charm to make you doubt your instincts. This is the push and pull cycle of narcissistic dynamics. The love bombing, the devaluation, the discard, then the return. It's not random, it's a strategy. His ego thrives on your instability. Here's the deeper wound. When you are caught in this cycle, you start questioning your own worth. You begin to wonder if you are too demanding, too emotional, too much. You start walking on eggshells, dimming your light, shrinking your needs, all to avoid triggering his pride. And in that process, you abandon yourself, piece by piece. This is not love, it is self-erasure. But there's another truth here, one that may sting. Ego-loyal men don't always leave. Sometimes they stay, long-term, but only because you continue to orbit around their needs. You become the steady supply that props up their self-image, and as long as you feed the ego, he will keep you. But the moment you reclaim your boundaries, the moment you stop feeding his pride, he will either rage, withdraw, or replace you. That's not loyalty, that's dependency, disguised as devotion. So here's the haunting question. When you think of the man you've loved most, Did he protect your soul, or did he protect his pride? Did he nurture your feminine energy, or did he drain it to inflate himself? Did you feel safe to be your whole self, or did you feel constantly measured, compared and tested? If your chest tightens as you replay the answer, it's because your spirit knows the truth, that loyalty to ego will never become loyalty to love. But here's where the story doesn't end, because the moment you see this dynamic for what it is, you are no longer asleep in it, and that awakening, though painful, is the beginning of reclaiming your power as a high-value woman who refuses to be a mirror for someone else's fragile. And yet once you see this, another question arises in the silence. If a man cannot love beyond his ego, what does that mean for the women who've built entire lives around men like this? What does it mean when the foundation you thought was love was only ever a pedestal for someone else's self-worship? That's the ache that lingers, the wound that whispers, and the exact tension that carries us forward into the next unraveling.
You ever notice how a man can look you in the eye, tell you he loves you, tell you he needs you, and yet when you look deeper, something in his energy feels off, like his loyalty is not really to you, but to something invisible, something beneath the surface. You sense it in the way he makes choices, in the way he navigates temptation, in the way he either stands by you or drifts into selfishness. And that's because men are not loyal to women. They are loyal to their own deepest interests. That's the hidden law of relationships most of us are never taught, the one that explains why you can give your everything and still find yourself abandoned. Some men are loyal to power. Their interest is dominance, control, having the upper hand. In that world, you are valuable only as long as you reflect their status. The moment you stop feeding their sense of superiority, you are discarded like a tool that no longer works. Others are loyal to comfort. They stay as long as you make life easier for them, cooking, loving, forgiving, providing a warm bed and a softer landing. But the moment you set boundaries, the moment you stop cushioning their flaws, they begin to pull away. And then there are men who are loyal to growth, loyal to the deeper truth that love is not about what you give them, but about what they build with you. Those are the rare ones, the ones who see partnership not as possession, but as evolution. The psychological trap comes when you mistake loyalty to comfort for loyalty to love. Because when a man is loyal to comfort, he can look consistent. He doesn't leave. He sticks around. He plays the role of partner. But underneath, his true interest isn't you. It's the lifestyle you provide. It's not emotional bonding, it's convenience. That's why so many women feel the ache of being both chosen and unseen at the same time. He stays, yes, but he doesn't protect, doesn't evolve, doesn't rise. And you feel yourself shrinking in the shadow of his inertia. But how do you know where his loyalty lies? Look at his sacrifices. Look at what he gives up, what he risks, what he protects without you having to ask. Because loyalty isn't revealed in declarations, it's revealed in decision. If his loyalty is to his ego, every decision will protect his pride, even if it costs you pain. If his loyalty is to comfort, every decision will avoid discomfort, even if it costs you growth. But if his loyalty is to love and to truth, his decisions will sometimes hurt him, cost him, demand of him, but they will never leave you unprotected. So here's the question that burns: the man you have loved most, what was his deepest loyalty? Was it to himself, to his habits, to his ego, or was it to the bond you tried to build together? And if the answer unsettles you, it's because deep down you've already felt the truth. You just didn't want to name it, because naming it means facing what it really says about where you stand. But once you see this clearly, another truth emerges. Your love, your sacrifices, your endless giving cannot change a man's loyalty. You cannot make him loyal to growth if his heart is only loyal to gratification. And when you finally stop pouring yourself into that empty vessel, you're left with another revelation that stings even more. When you love without boundaries, you're not just losing him, you're losing yourself. There's a quiet pain in a woman's chest when she realizes she has given too much, not just her time, not just her body, not just her love, but her very self. She has erased her own boundaries in the name of devotion, telling herself, if I love him enough, he'll see my worth. If I forgive him enough, he'll change. If I give enough, he'll stay. But the more she gives without limits, the more invisible she becomes. Because love without boundaries is not love, it's self-abandonment. Boundaries are not walls, though so many women fear they are. Boundaries are doors. They are the thresholds through which respect flows. Without them, a man does not learn where you begin and where he ends. Without them, he consumes you, your energy, your forgiveness, your compassion, like an endless buffet he never has to earn. And here's the devastating part. The more you erase your boundaries, the less he values what you give. Because what is freely given without protection loses its weight. Think about it. The first time you forgave him, he was grateful. The 10th time, he expected it. The 100th time, he no longer even acknowledged it. That's the psychology of taking without boundary. A man conditioned to endless forgiveness will not rise to meet your love. He will sink into entitlement. And you, the woman who thought her love was saving him, will instead find yourself drowning in the very ocean you create. This is why trauma recovery feels so disorienting for women who leave relationships without boundaries. Because when you've been conditioned to believe that love equals sacrifice, setting a boundary feels like betrayal, saying no feels cruel, demanding respect feels selfish. But the truth is inverted. Boundaries are the deepest form of love you can give, not just to him, but to yourself, because they say, I will not let you destroy me, and in protecting me, I give us both a chance at real love. Yet the pull to overgive is strong, especially in women whose feminine energy has been wounded, because when you were raised to be the healer, the peacekeeper, the one who smooths over conflict, giving without limits feels natural. It feels like safety, it feels like control. If I just keep giving, maybe I can prevent him from leaving. But that's not control, that's captivity. It binds you to his brokenness and keeps you from ever truly standing in your worth. Here's the cruel irony. The men who take most advantage of boundaryless love are the ones least capable of giving real love back. Narcissistic dynamics thrive on women with no boundaries, because every act of overgiving reinforces their control. And yet these are the very relationships women struggle to leave, because they mistake their own exhaustion for proof of devotion. So I ask you, when was the last time you set a boundary without apologizing for it? When was the last time you said, this is what I need to feel safe, without shrinking back in fear of his reaction? When was the last time you valued your own peace more than his comfort? If those questions feel heavy, it's because you know how rarely you've done it, but you also know how desperately your soul is craving it. And here's the paradox you can't ignore. The moment you begin to set boundaries, you discover who he really is. Because a man who truly values you will rise when you draw the line. He will adjust, he will respect, he will honor. But a man who only valued what you gave him will resist, punish, or leave. Boundaries don't just protect you, they reveal the truth. But that revelation is terrifying, because once you set a boundary, you can no longer pretend you don't see. You can no longer soothe yourself with illusion. And that's the moment where everything hangs in balance. The choice between the old you who gave without limits and the new you who demands respect. And in that fragile in-between, where fear and awakening collide, the next unraveling begins. There's a certain heaviness you feel around some men, isn't there? That invisible weight that doesn't come from what's spoken, but from what your spirit senses. You sit beside him, your hand in his, your smile carefully placed, but deep down, your energy feels smaller, dimmer, like you're shrinking just to fit into the space he allows. And then there are moments with others, rare moments, where your laughter is unforced, your body relaxes without thinking, your soul feels nourished rather than drained. That difference is not about chemistry, not about passion, not even about how long you've known each other. That difference is about energy, his effect on yours,
and your nervous system's ability to feel safe in his presence. You see feminine energy as not sustained by words or gifts or empty promises. It thrives in environments where it feels nourished, protected, and seen. When you're with a man who honors your essence, you feel expansive. You feel your emotions deepen, your creativity spark, your softness emerge. You glow, not because he gives you the glow, but because his presence does not suffocate. But when you're with a man who drains you, even subtly, your feminine essence contracts. You begin to doubt yourself, question your instincts, silence your truth, just to avoid friction. And with every small self-betrayal, your spirit grows heavier. The danger here is subtle, because draining relationships don't always look toxic on the surface. Sometimes he's polite, sometimes he's even affectionate, but energy never lies. Does your body feel lighter after time together, or does it ache with exhaustion? Do you walk away feeling full, or do you collapse into bed, wondering why you're so tired without ever having done much? That's your soul telling you the truth your mind keeps trying to rationalize away. This is where women get lost in psychological trigger. You keep chasing the good moments, telling yourself, but he can be so sweet sometimes. You replay the times he made you feel alive, and you cling to those fragments like they represent the whole, but they don't. They're crumbs, and your nervous system knows it because it doesn't respond to memories. It responds to the pattern. If the overall pattern leaves you depleted, then you're not being nourished, you're being drained. And here's the cruel paradox. Women often stay in draining dynamics longer than in openly abusive ones. Because abuse is undeniable, it shocks you awake. But slow, subtle draining feels like maybe it's just you. You think maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I need to be stronger. And so you stay slowly abandoning yourself in the name of love. But love that drains you is not love, it is erosion. The high-value woman learns to trust her energy before her excuses. She asks not, does he say he loves me, but how do I feel after being with him? Because the body never lies. It remembers every silence, every dismissal, every moment of being unseen, and it speaks through fatigue, anxiety, tightness in the chest. Those are not weaknesses. They are alarms, warning you that your soul is being dimmed. So let me ask you, quietly but directly, does your energy expand around him, or does it shrink? Do you feel emotionally safe, or do you constantly brace yourself for the next dismissal, the next cold shoulder, the next storm? If you have to pause before answering, that pause itself is an answer, and it leads you into the next layer of awareness, where healing begins, not in asking for reassurance, but in observing the loyalty of his energy. There's a moment in every woman's life where she stops asking, does he love me, and starts asking, where is his loyalty directed? That moment feels like stepping out of fog into blinding clarity, and though it hurts, it saves you, because love, as men often describe it, can be slippery. A man can say he loves you and mean it in his own limited way, but if his loyalty is not directed toward you, that love will never protect you. And that's why so many women feel confused, because he loves, yes, but his loyalty lives elsewhere. You've seen it, the man who claims he loves his family, but spends his nights prioritizing his friends, his habits, his addictions. The man who swears you're his soulmate, but keeps betraying your trust for the sake of his impulse. The man who tells you you're the best thing that's ever happened to him, but when you need him most, he disappears into silence. Love without loyalty is a mirage. You keep running toward it, thirsty for fulfillment, only to collapse in the sand of disappointment. This is why observation is more powerful than reassurance, because a man's words are rehearsed, but his loyalties are revealed in his patterns. Does he guard your emotional safety when others disrespect you? Does he show up when it costs him comfort? Does he sacrifice when growth demands, or does he only move when it benefits himself? These are not small details. They are the truth hidden in plain sight, and yet women often silence this knowing. You notice where his loyalty really lies, but you convince yourself it's temporary. You think if I just love harder, if I forgive longer, if I wait patiently, maybe his loyalty will shift toward me. But loyalty is not transferable like that. A man doesn't suddenly become loyal to what he never valued. You cannot water a stone and expect it to bloom. The deeper trap here is emotional bonding that forms through inconsistency, because when his loyalty is scattered, you never know when you'll get his best or his worst, and that unpredictability binds you tight. You crave the moments when his loyalty aligns with you, even if they're rare, and you excuse the rest. This is the psychology of intermittent reinforcement. It trains you to settle for crumbs while believing you're feasting. But here's the transformative shift. When you stop asking, "Does he love me?" and instead ask, "Where is his loyalty?" you stop romanticizing his potential and start confronting his reality. You begin to see that loyalty is energy in motion. It flows toward what he values most, and if it consistently flows away from you, no amount of your giving will redirect it. The pain of this realization can feel unbearable at first, because it dismantles the illusions you've been holding on to. But within that pain lies liberation, because once you see where his loyalty truly lives, you are no longer a prisoner of his mixed signals. You can step out of the loop of waiting, hoping, and overgiving. You can begin to reclaim the boundaries that protect your own emotional safety. So here's the piercing question that lingers, the one you can't ignore. When you strip away the words, the promises, the performances, where has his loyalty truly gone? Has it gone to his growth, his integrity, his love for you, or has it gone to his ego, his comfort, his distractions? The answer may ache, but it will also set you free, and in that freedom, you'll begin to discover the deepest truth of all, that real love is not proven in what a man says, but in what he protects when no one is watching. And if you've ever dared to see the gap between his love and his loyalty, then you already know that the next unraveling is not about him at all. It's about you. It's about the courage it takes to stop asking, stop begging, stop hoping, and finally step into the clarity of your own worth. There's a moment every woman remembers, the moment she realized she was bargaining with her own worth. Maybe it was the night you stayed awake, waiting for a call that never came, whispering excuses to yourself like prayers. Maybe it was when you forgave him for the 10th time even though your soul screamed against it, because the thought of losing him felt worse than losing yourself. Or maybe it was when you swallowed your voice, your dreams, your tears, just to keep peace in a relationship that was already fractured. In those moments, a dangerous story loops inside your mind. If I give more, if I bend further, if I make myself smaller, maybe he'll finally see me. Maybe he'll finally choose me. But here's the truth that shakes you when you finally let it sink in. Your worth is not a currency to be negotiated in the marketplace of love. It is not a discount you can offer to make someone stay. It is not a sacrifice you can perform to earn safety. Your worth simply is. And yet, how many women have been taught to act as if their value is conditional, as if being loved requires endless proving, endless giving, endless suffering? That's not love. That's a psychological prison. The high-value woman does not sit at the table of negotiation. She doesn't beg for scraps. She doesn't plead for recognition. She doesn't twist herself into shadows. She knows her worth is constant. Like the sun, it shines whether it's seen or not. But most women don't feel that way, because their feminine energy has been wounded by years of conditioning, betrayal, and emotional neglect. You grow up hearing that being good means being quiet, being patient, being forgiving. You learn that demanding respect makes you difficult, and so you train yourself to shrink, to be lovable. You think you must be small. This shrinking is subtle. It looks like apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. It looks like softening your truth, because you don't want to hurt his feelings. It looks like staying silent when his actions cut you, because speaking would mean risking abandonment. And every time you do it, you're not just losing pieces of yourself, you're reinforcing the illusion that your worth is up for debate, that it depends on his reaction, his attention, his approval. But the real tragedy is that this illusion feels safer than truth, because truth would mean risking the loss of him. Yet here is the paradox. Every time you shrink, every time you bargain, every time you abandon yourself for him, you're also teaching him how to value you. You're telling him, I am willing to erase myself for you, and a man who thrives on taking will gladly accept the erasure. That's why women caught in narcissistic dynamics so often feel invisible, because they taught the man, through their silence and sacrifice, that their needs were optional. But invisibility is not love, it is annihilation dressed up as devotion. So what happens when you stop bargaining? At first it feels terrifying. Setting a boundary feels like stepping onto a cliff's edge. Saying enough feels like betrayal. But as the words leave your lips, as the truth rises in your chest, something shifts. You feel yourself standing taller, not because he approved of you, but because you approved of yourself. And in that moment, you see what was always true. Your worth was never negotiable. It was only forgotten. But this awakening does not end the story. It begins it. Because once you remember your worth, once you stop begging, once you reclaim your boundaries, you face an even more piercing question. What kind of man deserves to stand beside a woman who knows her value cannot be debated? And that's where the next unraveling truth demands to be seen. Picture two paths in front of you. On one, a man who desires you deeply, who finds you irresistible, who loves the way you nurture, the way you forgive, the way you bend. But his desire is shallow. It is for gratification, not for growth. He wants your body, your energy, your endless giving, but not your becoming. On the other path, a man whose desire runs differently, not just for your presence, but for the future he can build with you. His loyalty is not to gratification, but to evolution, to the bond that makes both of you rise. Most women, at some point in their lives, choose the first path, because desire feels intoxicating. It rushes through your body like fire. It whispers promises of passion. It makes you feel wanted in a way that feels irresistible. But here's the catch. Desire without growth is a firework, bright, dazzling, and gone in an instant. It leaves you staring at the sky in silence, wondering why the warmth disappeared so quickly. A man loyal to gratification will consume you. He will take your softness, your emotional bonding, your feminine energy, and use them to feed himself. And for a while you'll believe it's love, because he'll make you feel chosen, in fleeting bursts. But then comes the emptiness, the unanswered texts, the cancelled plans, the lack of accountability. Gratification is self-serving, and when his hunger shifts, his loyalty shifts with it. But a man loyal to growth, his love feels different. It doesn't just ignite your body, it steadies your soul. He doesn't just want your presence, he wants your evolution, and he wants to evolve with you. This is the man who pushes you toward your dreams, instead of silencing, the man who respects your boundaries, instead of resenting them, the man who chooses long-term alignment over short-term comfort. And the irony is, this kind of loyalty feels less intoxicating at first, because it doesn't come with chaos, with manipulation, with dizzying highs and crushing lows. It feels steady, grounding, safe, and for women, conditioned to equate instability with passion, safety can feel strange, almost boring. But boring is a lie. Safety is not boredom. It is the foundation where true intimacy blooms. It is in safety that your feminine energy flourishes, that your creativity awakens, that your softness thrives. It is in safety that you discover love isn't meant to drain you, but to multiply you. And it is in safety that you finally realize why all the chaos before was never love, it was survival. So here's the piercing question. Which kind of man have you been loyal to? The one who gratifies, or the one who grows? And even more haunting, which kind of man do you secretly crave? Because the truth is, many women stay trapped in cycles of choosing men who gratify because their own wounds make chaos feel like home. Trauma recovery means teaching your nervous system that safety is love, not boredom. That stability is intimacy, not emptiness. That real men, high-value men, are not loyal to their own gratification, but to the growth of the bond you build together. But this realization doesn't wrap everything neatly. It opens a deeper tension, because once you know this, you can no longer settle for men, loyal only to desire. And that means the woman you are becoming, the one who knows her worth, the one who craves growth, must let go of the woman who kept mistaking chaos for passion. And in that letting go lies the most painful, yet most powerful transformation of all. Think of the last man who betrayed your trust. Was it because you didn't give enough, or because his loyalty was never to you in the first place? Hold that thought, we'll come back to it. Here's your takeaway, beautiful soul. Men don't care what you do for them, they care about what they're loyal to. And if his loyalty isn't aligned with love, respect and growth, no amount of sacrifice will change that. So stop fighting for a man's loyalty. Start standing in your worth, because the right man won't just be loyal to himself, he'll be loyal to you both. Tell me in the comments, have you seen this in your own life? Don't forget to like and share this, if it helped you see things clearer today. Subscribe for more empowering insights about healing, high-value living, and feminine strength. And I want to hear from you. Drop your ideas for future topics you want me to break down in upcoming videos.